Muzammil, I think we should start. He will join in a little bit. Okay.
Well, thank you for joining. We will start with the recitation of the Holy Quran. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. Allahu samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Sadaqallahu al-azim. On behalf of IoBM, I am grateful to all of you for your virtual participation in today's webinar on digitization of retail supply chain in Pakistan. This webinar has been organized by the Supply Chain Department of IoBM. I would like our head of department, Dr. Mahmood, to open the floor and start the discussion.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I welcome you on behalf of the Supply Chain Department. Welcome our participants, our panelists. The webinar we will be having on the digitization of retail supply chain. For several past few years, Pakistan has seen, is observing a tremendous growth in online businesses and including going e-payments and making full use of new innovations in information technology. So we have arranged this seminar to study or discuss or analyze or to hear from our professions in the field, the changes that are taking place and the trends that are happening, and what are the challenges they face and how the future will look like. Because according to, I was just reading about it, that according to some stats, that Pakistan's e-commerce saw almost 40% increase in e-commerce transaction in fiscal year 2018 and 19. And according to some data that is available, total domestic e-commerce market size is somewhere close to 65 billion in year 2019. And what makes it interesting that we already crossed for this current fiscal year, the Pakistan online business or e-payment, it already crossed 46 billion mark by December. So we are expecting a very huge increase in e-business activities and resulting from all the going online. So this is why we are in this seminar. It serves three purposes: it's for academia, for me, for my co-host Dr. Irfan. It gives us an opportunity to understand what is happening in the market and how what role we can play in the progress of e-commerce, and where how we can build a better working relationship with our industry. And for our student, it gives an opportunity to understand and better prepare for what is future holds for them. So this is it will be open panel discussion. We'll have a good Q&A, and look forward to some good information coming our respected panelists. I will hand it over to Dr. Irfan Hyder. Just to give you a brief recap, Dr. Irfan Hyder oversaw a major transformation in the Institute of Business Management, going online to a digitization. So I would like to ask him to please share some of his insights, experience, and the challenges they faced. So to Dr. Irfan Hyder. Thank you. I believe he is having some connectivity issues, so I'll ask Muzammil to proceed with the discussion, and we can have his insight later.
Okay. What a very high-powered panel here. I would like to give a set of introductions for each one of them. We've got Dr. Mahmood, who is an associate professor in supply chain and currently the head of the supply chain department at IoBM. Before undertaking his PhD, he's worked in major corporations in the USA, such as Citigroup and Bank of America. We've got Kinza Shaik with us. She's the general manager in Karachi for Cheetay. Previously, she was associated with Daraz.pk as the category manager and as head of brand management. And she's seen Daraz through its various stages during the 6 years she spent with Daraz. We've got Mr. Noman Lutfi with us, who is the Group General Manager for Integrated Supply Chain at EBM. Prior to this, he was the Supply Chain Director at Unilever Sri Lanka and part of the Board of Directors at Unilever Pakistan Limited. He's been in the industry since last 30 odd years and has kept a close connection with the academia by giving occasional lectures at IoBM and Birmingham City University Next campus in Sri Lanka. We've also got Rizwan Tanveer Malik with us, who is the head of supply chain at Aga Khan Hospital and also part of the visiting faculty team at IoBM. Previously, Rizwan has been associated with the aviation industry, where he was GM procurement and logistics for Shaheen Air. Mugheer Atif has also joined us, who is currently the head of operations at Daraz.pk, Pakistan's largest e-commerce portal. Before Daraz, he was a supply chain manager at Nestle, looking after end-to-end supply chain operations. He did his MBA from Sabancı University in Turkey and also has a degree in. I would like to thank all the panelists for taking out time on a Saturday evening and joining us, contributing to the knowledge of the students as well as the industrialists. Am I audible to everyone? Okay, great. Noman Sahab, being one of the most senior members of the panelists here and one of the most seasoned supply chain professionals of Pakistan, I would like to start off this session with you. Just wanted to take a brief idea from you that in your professional working span of more than 30 years, have you ever witnessed a similar situation as the present times, whereby there is a continuous fear of lockdown and issues in supply chain management, whereby you are unable to procure items from and locally? Have you ever faced such a situation before, or this is the first time in your career that such a situation?
Okay, so let's be precise. I have a span of 28 years, just yet to reach to 30 years, to three decades. I'm close to 3 decades. I think in my 28 years of supply chain, I think, and beyond as well when I was a student, I think we have faced a lot of flood situations and these things the supply chain had. In supply chain, and I was in 2010 Unilever when they faced the biggest floods of 2010 and a lot of the recession of 2007 and 8. But I think this is the kind of issue which we faced in the COVID times. I think it is unheard of. At least in my lifetime, it's once I've observed it. And on one way or other, I think and I was sitting on a side where basically I was sitting in the company, EBM, the supply chain head. So I think the COVID is the testing time for the supply chains of the companies. I must say, that's my understanding. Maybe you can differ from me and you can have a different point of view. But I think it's a challenge for a supply chain. And the day, I think for 26th or 25th, the first case was identified in Pakistan of COVID. I still remember. And then 25th was the first day, and 26th I was conducting a meeting, and that meeting was kind of a business continuity planning because we have an experience of other countries where the COVID is already on the rise. So we know that what kind of catastrophic situation can happen in the country. So on the second day, we had a first meeting of, must say, business continuity planning, because for me, the supply is a business continuity issue. And I think it is unique, and it is usually what is happening. You have earthquakes, you have sit-in protests in Pakistan, you have boycotts, and these kind of things you are going through day in day out in Pakistan. I think it's a part and parcel. Anybody who's in supply chain, I think, who's used to of these things, and they are managing supply chain with all these realities of Pakistan. So a time was, I still remember, when every week there's a strike in Karachi. So there's a protest happening, the tankers strike, there's a finished goods strike. So we are used to it, and I think in the Pakistani supply chain professional, I must say they are the most robust one. They know how to deliver in the difficult times. So I think, but this challenge has the multifaceted issues. You know, one, we have closed down a lot of areas, markets, lockdowns. So that is one facet where how do you reach to the consumer, how do you reach to the distributor. When there's a lockdown, there's a lot of panic, and you don't have availability of even in the transportations as well. Intercity transportation are on the situation which is completely banned at one point of time. And the biggest issue is that the lot of things that are imported from China. Every I think companies running China is a part and parcel of our businesses. So it starts from China. So we have also 2-3 suppliers in China, and we are a little stuck that how can we import to China. So if you allow me to talk about 1-2-3 minutes more, and let's give you a perspective that how we have managed. I think the catastrophic situation is multifaceted. From a supply side, which is basically you need to long lead times, clearance of the consignments, arrival of consignments. If a consignment is reaching in 3 months' time, it took 4-6 months' time as well. You know, time is doubled because of 15 days quarantine here, 15 days quarantine there, 1 week testing there, few weeks testing here, and this still adds a long lead time. So we worked in many ways. I think once that how can we log the consignments coming from affected countries, and also we work on a very quickly developing of the alternate suppliers. Let's say we at one point of China, we developed a supplier in Turkey, we developed such local source in Karachi. So the many work which is started on the supply side, so that at least my supply side has to be intact. So that's one which is more of procurement and supply side. The factory, how we integrate the people in the factory, 2,000 people running both the factories. And I think in the early March, we have a very strict kind of protocol. And it's very difficult that 100% employees coming to the factory has to go through a screening, has to go and interview that they have some symptoms, they have coming from travel from some other areas. So we do the gate control, which was very effective. I think this proved very effective because in last 4 months, we haven't stopped my factory for a single shift because of COVID. And it's a very difficult situation at one point of time, but and then supplies, continuous supplying. And on the other hand, the biggest issue is that we definitely every country, every supply chain has a target of inventory. And I think what we decided at day one that let's increase the inventory. We have to be more inventory at the warehouses level, at the distributor level. So whenever then the market is open, you can quickly reach to the market without having a long lead times. So we took a call to increase the inventory. And it's a very conscious call so that you can sitting close to your markets. And we want to run without a break kind of thing so that we don't know when the COVID issue happened, the factory to close down the factory. Because this has really happened and we faced in many in the newspaper and the media that this company is closed, this company is closed because of COVID and all that. So that fear was always in our head. It's like a talwar thi jo har waqt latak rahi thi hamare sar pe.
Noman, how long do you think that this talwar is going to hang on your head? Can you foresee this getting solved in the near future, or you expect it
I think I must say
2021 and beyond?
I think this year, because yes, we know that the COVID cases are decreasing, but there's another event which is very close to us, which is Bakr, and we know the kind of Bakr and Mandis are active now, and then in Muharram we're expecting a Muharram Julus as well, which we can't stop. Unfortunately, we should have. So I think till December you are into the situation, and I think in terms of the gate controls in the factories, I don't think it's going to be closed in by next 2-3 months. I think this protocol is going to be continued for months and months, and maybe in a year's time. Because we started when we have one case in Pakistan, so we will stop by only one case in Pakistan. So because if you see the symptom things are changing. There's one kind of symptomatic, there's a asymptomatic as well. There are a lot of other flus are in country. A lot of people are their COVID is negative, but still they are in fever. The fever is not breaking. So we have other problems as well. So I don't think the factory control or this gate control is going to end in the next 6 months or 7 months. I as on the factory should continue because ensuring me that people coming to the factory and handling my foods are completely hygienic and they are not with any symptoms.
Thank you for your reply, Rizwan. Mr. Noman has given us perspective from perspective of warehousing and the FMCG. You are a part of Aga Khan University Hospital and heading their supply chain. And AKU has been on the forefront of the war against COVID-19. So how equipped were your existing supply chain systems to cope up and handle the pandemic in terms of receiving patients, in terms of procurement of medicines and other equipment?
Thanks a lot, Muzammil. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A little correction. Basically, it's Akhan Health Services. It's a sister concern of a larger Akhan Development Network. And basically, AKUH is more into tertiary care, and we are looking after the primary and secondary care. And by virtue of our geographic spread, we are far more, complicated, and we have a far more complex infrastructure, because when I say primary and secondary care, I'm talking about the far-flung areas of Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral, where at this point in time, even the government is struggling. So from my perspective, if you would ask me, we had the very similar challenges. And Noman very rightly put that when we had one case reported, no one was actually geared up, and no one was foreseeing what would be the impact toward the supply side. We were a bit more too concerned about what was being happening and what would be happening within the territory, but it was less thought of the type of regulations and limitations that were to be imposed on imports and exports of the other country. So it's not just your country and your regulation. If you are even willing to import, there are a lot of embargoes, and there were a lot of regulations that were imposed on the export countries. So day one, it looked that, okay, we have one case, it's in China, and things was okay. They didn't look so bad, but then all of a sudden we saw what happened. Now, what exactly happened in the healthcare industry is a prime case. It's a case study that we will and we should be letting the students know in the times to come. uh, PPEs, as we all know, and I'm really glad being in this profession some 15, 18 years back. I always mentioned this thing that it was even difficult to explain to your parents what supply chain was and why you wanted to opt for this field. But I'm glad now on the mainstream media and your advisor to the Prime Minister and your NDMA chairman, they specifically talk about the supply chain and the intricacies involved. In the healthcare sector globally, not just in Pakistan, globally, the healthcare sector was the one which saw the biggest hit because of this pandemic. And we understand that that was primarily in the domain of PPEs and in the domains of medical equipment, the way the demand surged. And the foremost important thing that emerged as the most important thing out of the health sector was the PPE. Instead of the medication and the patient care, uh, the type of pandemic and its characteristics, it made this domain very critical. Now, from a supply chain perspective, as Numan rightly put, the supply side is one challenge, and then within the country, the distribution and the storage and making them available to 110 different far-flung areas. In the given scenario, when you have very limited logistical infrastructure available because of the lockdowns, so interprovincial transportation was not there. By air options, your airspace was closed, the railways are not working. Now imagine in this, you have to maintain your cold chains and you have to maintain your supplies across the board. So essentials and health sector to be on the very number one, and then followed by the essentials. Uh, Definitely, nobody was foreseeing this. Nobody was geared up, and the reason why we will talk about it later as well. The reason why we haven't been able to capitalize onto this opportunity when it comes to digital supply chain is because the infrastructure, even at this point in time, is not conducive and does not have the capacity to process volumes at such a short pace as compared to the developed world. So they have been doing this for a while, but we have very limited mature participants in this arena as of today, and there are very limited players who know the ins and outs of e-commerce. Service level is one, consumers trust is one, the quality is one, logistics is one. So you just pick up a segment and a block of a supply chain, and you will find challenges which are serving as a stumbling block. So we have yet a long way to go in this domain.
Okay. Thank you, Rizwan. You touched the point of e-commerce. So let's reach out to Mugheer and ask him that how has this pandemic affected the retail business? Because Mugheer is looking after the operations at Daraz.pk, an industry which was hit massively by COVID in terms of growth. So let's see his views on how the COVID impacted his business.
Yeah, so Muzammil, like all businesses, we were initially impacted. I think April was the worst month for us, where the government was unclear about its direction. So during the month of April, it was not clear to the government whether e-commerce should be allowed to operate or not. And it was only during approximately around mid of April when the government realized that having e-commerce operational is actually going to support the war against COVID. So going forward from April onwards, we have been experiencing a lot of growth and a lot of orders. In fact, there have been times that we are so how we adapted to it was being a technology-driven company. Daraz is early adapters to changes. We adapt to change very rapidly. So we were very quick to onboard more people in our teams, and we had segregated our teams within 3 shifts. There was supposed to be a distance of safe distancing and social distancing, and along with that, there were shift timings which were not overlapping, so that when we had one shift operating, the other shift would not be operating. In that way, if God forbid one shift got infected by COVID, we could resume the operations with the other 2 shifts. Other than that, yes, the volume influx has been huge, and Daraz has managed it pretty well.
Okay, so Mugheer, I'm sure the volumes you were expecting maybe in November during Singles Day and Black Friday, you got those sort of volumes right now. So what kinds of you were expecting later in November? Do you see the spike
Yeah.
growth or?
So with e-commerce, it's once you have a user onboarded, once a user experiments with the e-commerce. So in Pakistan, the level of trust on e-commerce is still very low. So people do not trust a company to deliver within the timeline, to deliver the right product. But over time, we have been working to establish that trust. So what is happening is that once a consumer uses e-commerce for the first time, he or she if the experience is good, he or she continues using it. So the turnaround is that you have a regular customer instead of one who just uses it one time and quits it. So going forward in November, we are expecting our volumes to be double or triple of what we had in last year.
Okay, thank you. Kinza, from e-commerce, we've recently seen that there's a lot of influx coming from the now commerce industry as well. We can see Cheetay, Airlift, and Food Panda taking over the industry. What challenge is your industry facing during these pandemic times?
Thank you for having me here, Muzammil. It's a pleasure. So yes, you're right. Now commerce is increasingly penetrating into Pakistan. I mean, it's safe to say that it turned out to be the need of the hour. The way people are adapting to the service now is a great opportunity itself. And you won't find a better opportunity to be entrepreneurial or creative like we have now. And the pandemic has definitely defined the generation and created new norms. So I think the biggest challenge at this point in time was that there's a constant battle between reopening the economy or mitigating the spread of the virus. So I think the only way forward is to be focused, to have a smart lockdown, to ensure economic activity goes the way we want it to go. And Cheetay is playing a role by working with the government constantly in making this happen. I think it has created opportunities as well as challenges. The major challenge was that we had limited service hours to get people what they need. I think initially when Now Commerce started back in 2017, people were not that adaptive towards service compared to how they are now, because firstly that people don't want to step out. There has been a behavioral change, and people are adapting to the service, and this behavioral change has really given us an opportunity to kind of increase our service. We've been adaptive to the whole thing by opening up different cities, by opening up different categories. So I think it's really working, and the way people are approaching e-commerce or now commerce, as you say, is completely different to what it was like maybe even a few months ago. Earlier on, I think the Pakistani market and the Pakistani people are very discount driven. But now it's a lot about convenience. So I think so that's really working for now commerce. And the major challenges, as you asked, were around the service areas, about the government not being sure. I'll have to agree here. The government was initially not sure how to kind of manage this whole thing, and the operations hours. Let's say, so Cheetay is into food and they're also into grocery. Initially grocery stores timings were set, but with restaurants there was always a confusion. किसी दिन कोई खुला है, किसी दिन पुलिस आके उनको बंद करा रही है, riders को उठा के ले गए. So there was, so every day was a new day and every day was a new challenge. And I think things have settled down now, and I think e-commerce, now commerce, is really paving the path, and I think this is the time for the customers. And we've all been working really hard to kind of be there for the customers so they can stay home, and all the services can be provided to them within by them staying home.
Okay, thank you, Kinza, for your feedback. Dr. Ali, we have heard views from people from the healthcare sector, from the FMCG side, and from the e-commerce side. So what role do you think that academy and universities can play in helping the students gear up for this new type of evolving continuously industry dimensions?
I think just like similar to any industry, we academia, not only in Pakistan, across the world, was caught very much off guard. We always talk about going online, going online teaching, but we never thought that we'll be going 100% online. So initially it was very challenging for everyone, just like, for us, for management, for faculty, for students. And what I would say that we all went through a learning phase. No one was in this triangle could say that they were prepared and they knew how to manage. And what we did, we went through it, this phase, we learned from it. Like I learned lots of things. I learned how to manage a student, how to interact with the student, how to keep their interest online and during the lecture. And same goes, learning happened for our students as well. One of the major challenge was that what we faced in the beginning was 100% transformation into online teaching, and we always have resources, but as I said, we were never ready for 100%, and that was one of the major challenge that was taken over or handled by our administration, our management, including Dr. Irfan Hyder, who is here, and so it was a major challenge. And I think since Dr. Irfan was right into the middle of this battlefield, if he's online at the moment, I think he can share more light and more insight the challenges of transformation we went through. So I'll pass it on to him. He's a real person there.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Sorry, I was there, but I couldn't get in there earlier. But I've been following very interesting. I was just wondering what to speak about. Some of the things, interesting things that we learned through our massive conversion from totally physical campus to a totally online campus in about 2 months. So we made this transition for over 1,000 sections that were being taught by over 400 faculty members, and in the courses having spread over 40 departments. And we made all of this transition, and of course this transition required enabling the students to make this transition, and then also the teaching methodology and learning. And it was a very, very interesting project, and there was tremendous learning. The learning happened in 4 different areas. Number one, the easiest one was the technology part. We just initially, after the initial problems, we realized that our in-house servers will not be able to support all of this traffic coming in. So that was actually about 3-4 days, crucial days, when we took the online server, in-house server to cloud compute. The biggest challenge was how to get all the 400 faculty members to come online and complete the requirements of over 1,000 courses. So it was a tremendous learning. So the learning was that, and it's a very interesting learning in change management. And the way we did it was to actually identify the early adopters. And we had around 50 faculty members. Actually, we had the system already up and running in Jan, because we wanted to go use the LMS, and the project had started about a year ago. So, but at the time of lockdown, there were only about 50 courses that were online. So we had to take from 50 to 1,000, over 1,000 courses in about 2 months. So the early adopters, how did we actually took those early adopters and use them as change agents for teaching the faculty members, the other faculty members who were slow to get in, and also teaching the HODs who were slow to come in, and also coming up with new ideas and new creative ways of doing the same thing. So it was a tremendous team work, and following the typical S curve, of course. But the early adopters and the use of those adopters for changing the entire environment was a wonderful experience. And these, starting with around 50 of these, and this group then became about 150. And these are good faculty members. They were early adopters. Some of the even senior faculty members surprised us by the amount. You see, people often think that teaching is a session like this on Zoom. That's just one part of it. The whole, the learning management system, which enables engagement of the students with the teacher, comprises of about 20 different types of asynchronous and synchronous activities of different granularity. And one of these is this Zoom online meeting. So, and many of these schools or the universities would think that this online Zoom or Meet or whatever Teams connectivity is what education all about, then they are sadly mistaken. So I think the change management, the adoption of the new technology, and how did we actually progress from people starting with maybe Zoom and then graduating to more complex things like forum and chat and Scrum and glossary and quizzes and lesson plans, and these are the various types of things. But the interesting part, which I think, just to connect it with the retail supply chain, I think we need to focus more on the last mile of the retail. I think they are the biggest hit. And how do these companies can enable delivery of the items quickly? Yes, the big players are there, the Daraz type, but I think there were many enterprising smaller companies who started doing that. I managed to get within the first week a particular shop opened in Urdu Bazaar, and got that person to deliver to my home some of the painting and other stuff for my children. But I think they got hold of it and they started using WhatsApp and other applications to do it. So it was a change experience, and I think many of us would have, you see, we were not using Zoom meetings so productively earlier. And I think we have this potential of using this technology and the other technologies in much better manner. But we need to have also systems available that will allow all of this online transactions happening, delivery tracking, and quality checking. The biggest challenge in retail supply chain, I think, you see, B2B is easy. Both B and B are big and big. So big to big is easy, but big to small is really difficult. This business of B2C. Uh, but you see, it is also in the supply chain. I think the agricultural supply chain is an area which we need to focus. And those that have focused, like Angro with their milk, they were quite successful in making that. And I think those are and I think there's someone from Nestle, I think, I was looking over the profile, at least there was someone who had worked for Nestle. So,
Yes,
so this supply chain, starting from the growers and connecting directly to the consumers, that's the big challenge. And the bigger challenge is, you see, the moment you connect the elements of a supply chain, the inventory moves upward. And the worst suffering would be the grower. Actually, everything will move. So the moment you digitize all of these interactions in the supply chain, the worst suffering will be the grower, because everything will move up, and the risk will be borne over there, and the inventory costs will move over there, while everyone in the chain will. So we have to actually work in that direction and work in developing an equitable supply chain that will not rob the growers of their hard-earned effort. So those are a few of my ideas regarding that, and I thank all of you for being here and contributing.
Thank you. Dr. Irfan, we've got a question that IoBM was one of the first few universities in Pakistan to start off with online sessions. So post pandemic, are you going to see this continued effort, or are you going to shift back to only physical lessons, or is it going to be an amalgamation of both in the time to come?
I think I didn't make it very clear. I mentioned that we started implementing learning management system about a year ago. Okay. When the spring semester started, all of our courses and students were already on LMS. However, not every faculty member was using it. Their accounts were there, the students' accounts were there, and those who cared, who could get in, and there were about 50 faculty members and about 100 courses that there were some early adopters who were already using the software. So our initiative of LMS predates lockdown. What lockdown has done is that it has compressed our 3-year rollout into a 2-month rollout. So we were very well, at least conceptually speaking, the paradigm shift required reanalysis of various assumptions underlying how the examinations need to be covered, how the teaching needs to happen, what are the ingredients of the teaching, how the blending takes place, how the flipping of the classroom occurs. These were all of the concepts that we were very well aware, and they were part, one can actually see the strategy document that we had about a year ago. It had listing all of these, but we were thinking maybe by the end of this year, 2020, if I would have 20 or 40% faculty member coming in, I would have been really happy. Now, within a month, we had about 100%. And the next month we took in making sure that all of them had, all the courses had gone to the minimum quality standard. So it is going to stay. It is there. I think the private sector has gained tremendously. The biggest change has been the Commission. They would have never allowed universities to go into virtual education had this not occurred earlier. So they had to actually, they were forced to allow all the universities to use it. And now that we have this advantage, we are not going to let it slip away.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Irfan. Mugheer, I would like to thank you. Dr. Irfan mentioned about last mile and how important it is for stock and parcels to reach at the destinations timely. So how was Daraz coping up with excessive volumes during these pandemic times, and how were you as the operations head ensuring that all the parcels were being dispatched on time and reaching the customers on time as well?
So Muzammil, we had already, like I said previously, that we were the early adapters to the pandemic, and we had already increased our fleet. We had already increased our workforce, and we had taken permissions from the government to operate during those hours. Okay, what we did was because of that we had an excess capacity. We also established a few protocols which were later on established in the government's SOP as well, that all packages that were delivered to the customers, they had to be wiped off by an alcohol swab so that the risk of transmission was minimized. And furthermore, to minimize the risk of transmission, we encouraged prepayments more and more, because the lesser the cash handling, the lesser the risk of the transfer of virus.
Okay, and one more question towards you. Dr. Irfan was also speaking about business to business. And during the last 3-4 months, you've seen a significant growth in business to business e-commerce ventures such as Bazaar and Tajir. So what impact does it have on the retail digitization, or is it part of the same scope, or is it different?
I think that was something that was lacking for a very long time. So you see, there have been companies that have been coming in and focusing on the end consumer a lot, right? So you have the example of Careem, Uber. So anyone who requires a taxi now has more convenience through Careem. Anyone who wants to order food now has more convenience through Cheetay or Food Panda. But nobody had focused on the retailer up till now. So what Bazaar and Tajir, these guys are doing is they're giving the due importance to the retailer, because he's a very key aspect of our supply chain, and the numbers are huge. So Pakistan has, Bloomberg said, I think in 2017, that Pakistan is on target to become one of the biggest retail landscape in the world, right? So what these guys are doing is they are bridging the gaps between manufacturers, between distributors, and between the local mom and pop stores, which we call Kiryana stores. So I think these guys are doing a very important job. And going forward, I think once the end consumer, once the retailer gets adapted to this kind of convenience, I don't think he's going back to purchasing goods from, I'm talking about the small, yeah, exactly, the smaller retail stores who go to Jodia Bazaar or go to, various wholesale markets in Lahore or Karachi. So once they are adapted to this technology, once they are adapted to the convenience that you can order and it will be delivered the next day. So with the distribution in the retail chain, the issue is that the distributor sales reps, they are not regular, they do not visit very frequently, and the retailer is cash struck. So he doesn't have enough cash to buy for example, 1 month or so. All right. And going forward, I see these companies integrating with the POS systems of the retailers. The Kiryana stores are evolving. Every neighborhood now has a Kiryana store which has a proper aisle, which has an air-conditioned facility. They are offering a point of sale receipts, etc. And with this evolution, I think the point POS and inventory will then be integrated with can be integrated with the apps of these B2B e-commerce companies, and then their stock levels can be monitored more accurately, which will further help in demand planning for FMCGs as well as for the retailers both.
Okay, thank you. Good input. Noman Sahab, you have been associated with the supply chain industry since last 28 years or so, and you've been in managerial positions looking after various facets of supply chain. So how do you think the supply chain and retail side of Pakistan has evolved with respect to digitization over the years?
Basically, in Pakistan, in one side, if you talk about the modern trade specifically, then I think I must say that it's an evolving stage. Whereas the GT side is not that evolving in terms of the modernization or the digitalization. The important part is that in Pakistan, I think, before moving to a digitalization of the retailers part, I think if you go little 10, 15, 20 years back, if you see that retailers are more or kind of a passive people sitting at one end, and they're not that demanding. And then now the retailers is very demanding. The time has changed. So they was not they were in a passive mode. You just make orders and deliver to them. They are not too much involved and not too much interact with your supply chains. Now I think the retailers are more demanding, and with the evolving of the modern trade and with the e-commerce and all these things, I think the retailer is to play a very keen and important part in the supply chain overall, because it's end with them with the supply chain. So now the most of the supply chains are reshaping because of demand coming from the retailer sides, which was not earlier with us. So that is one thing which pushes us to in most of the companies, they are working in supply chain models, but they are not effectively into the one of the good ERP systems that in place with them. So they are become digitalized, you know, and they most of the companies are not have very powerful automatic kind of or panel order mechanisms. So they have more of working on a manual systems. So I think the retailers demand or supply chain side is more from push side to a pull side, not towards what shopper driven supply chain. The model is changing. In somewhere, in some pockets, the model has changed and shopper driven has started, but in some side, it's still working on a push model. So we are in Pakistan different stages in my point of view. So the most important thing to go for digitalization, I think this pushes the laws has to have a more stronger system, and the system of the company, the customer, and the retailer, they can talk to each other. That's one of the prime need of the hour. If they're not talking to each other, the system, they're not talking to each other, it's very difficult to cater the demand of the consumer. The consumer wants, if he wants to order today, he wants to order in the morning, he wants to get the order in the evening. So that's the kind of impatience, and the youngsters are the more was enjoying this online ordering mechanism and all these things. So they are basically, and the retailers who are more progressive in nature and they are more not passive anymore, they are basically forcing the companies to improve the supply chain, digitize your supply chain, cut off the lead times, and this kind of thing. So in my point of view, I think I strongly believe the companies who really want to embark on the journey of e-commerce, they need to understand the true need of the retailers, and accordingly they have to serve them. And then your system has to be established. So I think we have to quickly move from push to a pull to a shopper-driven supply chain, and that's where the solution lies. And your systems interacting, talking to each other, so that you have a fast flow of information and fast flow of the delivery of the orders. And one more thing I think is which is in between the two. If you see, go back to earlier times, we have warehouses, and then warehouses get at the demand. So I think now we need to engage the third-party logistics partners. They are just not transporters. They are logistics partners who understand the end-to-end connectivity from our customer retailer angles to a factory. So I think you need to engage them as well, and you need to start monitoring them as well, because the containers, and you should know in your screens that where your containers is reached now. You should have a visibility. So I think that transparency is also one demand of the time, where you can see when your orders come, you can see where your orders can be dispatched, when you can say where orders can be delivered. These kind of requirements, you're only transparent, your systems talking to each other, you can see each other areas as well. So you can, at the end, you have to satisfy your consumers, I believe. So I think these kind of changes, which is need of the time, and open up yourself. Open up your kimonos, and you don't hide yourself, and open up. Because as much as you are transparent in your systems, you are a better supply chain. So transparency is another T which is required by the whole companies to satisfy this not a passive, very active retailers now. That's what I believe.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Noman. Kinza, I would like to continue my discussion with you in relation to what Mr. Noman was speaking about warehousing and logistics. So I believe Cheetay and Food Panda and other now commerce players in the industry, started the concept of dark stores in the country. So can you explain a little bit more about the concept of dark stores and how dark stores are helping you deliver there and then within 2 hours, within an hour to the end consumers?
Okay, so Muzammil, basically, e-commerce और now commerce का basic फर्क ये है कि now commerce और as they call it quick commerce now is कि आपने deliveries जो हैं customers को within 30 minutes पहुंचानी है, ठीक है? And it's not about 2 or 3 days now. People want their groceries, people want their services, their medicines now. So I think to cater to that need, Food Panda, Cheetay, and all these that you mentioned. Have come up with the concept of dark stores. So dark store is basically the back end, a small warehouse that is situated in the hotspots of the city. So let's say अब Karachi है, उसको हम लोगों ने 8 zones में divide कर दिया है. 8 zones being, let's say, DHA Clifton, Gulshan Johar. अब जहाँ पर भी हमें पता है कि सबसे ज़्यादा डेंसिटी है, जहाँ कस्टमर डेंसिटी है, जहाँ से ऑर्डर ज़्यादा आते हैं, वहाँ पर हमने एक डार्क स्टोर प्लेस कर दिया है. डार्क स्टोर का कॉन्सेप्ट ये है कि ये एक छोटा सा वेयर हाउस होगा जहाँ टॉप सेलिंग प्रोडक्ट्स या जो लोग रेगुलर बेसिस पे ऑर्डर करते हैं वो हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे स्टोर किए हुए होंगे. सो द टाइम इज सेव्ड, बजाय इसके कि एक वेयर हाउस हो जो कि कहीं कोरंगी में लोकेटेड हो, आपने 15-20 dark stores खोल दिए, and it's only gonna, because you have 30 minutes to do a lot. So there's a customer involved, there's a rider involved, there's us involved. So to go through all of this in within 30 minutes and to make sure that it's all the SOPs are being followed post COVID, contactless deliveries के बारे में अपने riders को train करना, उनको उस हिसाब से पूरा social distancing maintain करना within the dark store, वो सब कुछ करके 30 minutes में delivery पहुंचाना, इसी रीजन की वजह से डार्क स्टोर्स बने हैं जहाँ पर आप उसी वक्त पिक पैक एंड पैकेज करके जो है भिजवा सकते हैं कस्टमर को. सो द प्रोसेस इज कि when an order lands on the portal, and this process is like for all of these companies that you mentioned, इनमें यही होता है कि within 10 minutes a rider is at the location at the dark store and 12 minutes के अंदर is on the route. So to get all of that going, these hotspots were located और यहाँ पर dark stores खोले गए to just kind of speed up the whole process.
Okay, so I believe all of these now commerce players have got a fleet of more than 1,500 to 2,000 riders roaming around Karachi and other cities. So
that's true.
How do you train these riders and how do you equip them and tell them about the SOPs? And do you think are they really being followed in the city?
No, definitely. I think SOPs is very crucial at this point in time because you can't go wrong with that, because the core of the business right now is to serve the customer and for them to be safe. So there is no question of the SOPs not being followed. It's very, very important. I think Cheetay was quick to introduce contactless deliveries and minimize contact and delivering products in a safe and hygienic way. And our riders have gone through rigorous trainings of disinfecting let's say their carrier bags, safe distancing, or at least 2-meter difference in picking up orders from designated spots. And the riders wear their masks, their gloves, they're always carrying a hand sanitizer. So, and they also undergo a daily temperature check. So let's say अगर मैंने order place किया है तो जैसे ही मुझे कोई rider assign होगा, मुझे उसके बारे में SMS आएगा कि ये उसका नाम है या इस time पे उसका temperature check किया गया था और ये उसका temperature था. So I think all those preventive measures are being taken and we're taking the customer in the loop so they're confident about their purchase journey and they know who's coming over and who's going to be delivering the items to them. So I think इस तरह ही आप customer का confidence gain कर सकते हैं in these times.
Good to hear about that. Dr. Ali, we've been hearing views from Mr. Noman, Kinza, and Mugheer, and how the changing landscape of e-commerce and now commerce is. So which areas or subjects do you think universities should focus more on to cater to the current trends in the industry? And how do you think we should equip our students to get ready and face this continuous change in the industry right now?
That's a good question. I mean, I was listening to this conversation, and that's what was in my mind. That so, according to what is the trends that are taking place, that how as an academic we should respond, and this is one of the part of this having this webinar. I believe that we already have few areas that we cover, like in our program, like innovations and and also part of new development and IT technologies or logistics project. But thing is that with IT is that IT is transforming or developing at such a fast pace that the thing that you might have taught a year ago could be obsolete by the time you go for next semester. I think the major challenge for every academic and the institution is that how you continue to evolve, how you continue to bring in new areas and keep the students' interest in what is happening out in the market. If you go to an institution, you will still be surprised to find that for them, still the cloud computing is a major thing. Although we have gone very far from it, to the new so much paradigm shift taking place. So what I believe the real challenge that academic will see in the future is to have a continuously evolving their course learning outcomes, their courses, their syllabus. I think they will need to incorporate more as a working profession like we have over here as an academics in their organization, but also getting them involved as an advisor or maybe as supervisors in their projects. I think that will be the major challenge. And with this, students also need to realize that, the way things are changing is that now things are becoming proactive and hands-on, especially in the era that we are living with online teaching. They have to be proactive in learning. I mean, I can, or you, anybody, we can talk about online, we can talk about digitization, but then it becomes in their hand that to go out and know or learn more about it, their practical application, how it can be applied, or is it that future they would like to pursue? So I think there's a very interesting development are taking place. If I see my student and, or if I think that if I was in their position, this is a very interesting era that they are in, and it's very challenging and rewarding as well.
So, Dr. Mahmood, I think this webinar was one way in which the students and the industries could connect. In your opinion, what could be other areas of collaboration between universities and such online businesses so that both of the parties could benefit from it?
I think with the universities, universities need to focus more on industry-specific research that we rarely or very limited focus on in Pakistan. We have very limited research generally, and on top of it, industry-specific research is limited. We, as a university, even myself, we need to open up and go out and offer to the industry that what we can offer to them to enhance and improve their operations. We can help them in solving their problem. We have students who are eager to learn, who are eager to get hands-on, and we have we already have working relationships with several organizations, and that's what I believe that need to be further evolved, and we need to go one step further and build a better working relationship between industry and the institution to cater the industry demands and the needs and the development that are taking place.
Dr. Mahmood, I've received one question from Fiza, and she's asking that contingency planning must be added as a separate course. What do you think about this?
That's a very good idea. I mean, we already, the part of supply chain course, we stress on the risk management and planning. But I understand, as we said, the things are evolving and the things are changing. That could be that could be a very good suggestion of either we can focus more on the risk management or risk management course, and or make it a totally separate area of study. That's a very good suggestion. I'll take a note of it. Thank you.
Kinza and Mugheer, you both belong to the e-commerce and now commerce industry specifically. We've been seeing that a lot of industries have been laying off people, and there's been a lot of firing going on globally. But in e-commerce and now commerce, we've seen a spike of hiring, and specifically in companies like Daraz and in Cheetay, there've been a lot of posts coming and they require people. So how do you think that students can equip themselves to land those jobs? Because if you look at the aviation side, if you look at the other industries, they aren't hiring as of now. But in your position, we can see that your companies are currently hiring at the moment, and not only in logistics, but in marketing and in, supply chains and in the other aspects of the business. So how do you think the students can equip themselves to land those jobs, keeping in view that they are, for every position, there are more than 50 to 60 applicants?
So, Muzammil, I'll just clarify something over here that it was not always a walk in the park. I think our company has taken very difficult decisions that we didn't let go of anyone, although our April volumes were probably less than half of what we were expecting. So I think
Okay.
kudos to the leadership and not
Good to know
only
that.
not only the e-commerce. There have been some other FMCG companies as well where the CEO has stepped up. I know for a fact Nestle as well, and told everyone on the floor that nobody is going to get laid off. So I think it is important that your organization has your back during such tough times. Responding to your question, how students can be a part of this. So basically, I think we offer internships, we offer future leadership programs, and internship at Daraz is pretty different to internships at normal other companies, I'd say, because I've had an experience of working for Philip Morris, for Damco, for Nestle, and I'd say in Daraz the interns are basically thrown into the pool, and you have to learn to swim. So they're not treated as interns; they are treated as your colleagues, your full-time colleagues. So whenever there is a challenge, whenever there is an expertise required, we wouldn't say, okay, let's just get the intern out. We say, okay, bring the intern in and let's discuss it on the table. And other than that, there have been companies, I've worked for companies which have privacy issues with sharing data with the interns, but Daraz does not believe in that. So I think internship is a very good opportunity. And other than that, I would like to speak on behalf of all corporations. I think the academia and corporations, they need to partner up more. So like when I was doing my MBA in Turkey, I did a project for DHL where we were optimizing PNG supply chain in the Middle East. So I think the projects that corporations give to students, it's normally very, for a lack of better words, very lame. It's not entirely value adding. It's just something that do to get the credit score, to get your grades, to get an A and move on. But I think those need to be real, meaningful, value adding projects, and that can going forward help your organization as well. Because I know for a fact that when I was doing that project, we were able to optimize PNG supply chain by about $500,000. So that was something that DHL recognized, and it was value adding for them and for us both. So I think we need to work on similar projects, similar partnerships, rather than going hands-on to a management consultant. I think we should, evaluate ideas, run it by students as well. Because to be honest, we have a lot of potential, but we just don't tap it enough. We just don't trust our students to, make decisions like that.
Thank you. Dr. Irfan Hyder, I believe CBM already has such an arrangement in place by the name of Capstone. Would you please brief us about it? Or if Dr. Irfan is not available, Dr. Mahmood, can you please?
Can I?
Yes, Noman, sir.
I think I just want to pick this what Atif said. I think this is a very, very important area. And I just want to jump in because I am a strong believer that there's a strong connectivity is required between academia and the industries. And we need to start giving a very kind of problems which industry is facing, which organizations are facing to our students so that they can come and do an internship which is based on problems, which is based on some solutions and these kind of things. So if we, yes, there's things that are happening in pockets, but still that's not structured. And my point of view, because the industry is here, the organizations are here, and the academy is also here, I just want to emphasize that we need to structure that area, that the special internship part has to be done with the problem of industry or organization sorted out by the student, because students have a different, because they are new, fresh, they can see it with different eyes. So we can start giving the supply chain people the problems of the industry organization so that a good relation, a structured relationship has to start with academia and industries. That's what I want to just emphasize. That's why I just want to raise my hand to talk about
Muzammil,
this
I
one.
would also like to add here,
Yes.
since you also directed the question to me. So I think at this point in time, since the students are also here, I'd just like to add that I think entrepreneurial mind बहुत ज़रूरी है. You need to think out of the box. Earlier on पहले क्या होता था कि जब भी कोई ग्रेजुएट होता था तो उनको FMCG में जाना है, ब्रांड मैनेजर बनना है, उसी ट्रैक पर जाना है. बट अब लोग स्टूडेंट्स में भी एक अच्छी चीज आई है, उनको भी अप्रिशिएट करना चाहिए कि वो भी स्टार्टअप्स की वर्ड्स जाना शुरू हुए हैं, वो भी इन चीजों को देखते हैं. बट यू नीड टू बी वेरी इनोवेटिव एंड यू नीड टू थिंक आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स. एक बुक्स को लेके चलना या प्रैक्टिकली देखना, आई मीन जो हमारी नेबरिंग कंट्रीज है वो क्या कर रही हैं, बाहर मुल्क में क्या हो रहा है, आई थिंक दैट अवेयरनेस is lacking when you meet fresh graduates or students. कई दफा उनको कई बहुत बड़े बड़े वेंचर्स के बारे में भी नहीं पता होता दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है. तो आई थिंक जस्ट टू कीप देमसेल्व्स रियली अपडेटेड. एंड जहां तक आपने फायरिंग की बात की, आई मीन I'm proud to say Cheetay is going through a firing freeze, that they say they're not firing anybody and they're actually hiring aggressively. So for all the students out there, reach out to startups and think along those lines. I think jitna aap स्टार्टअप में जाकर सीख सकते हैं, आप किसी भी बड़ी और कंपनी में नहीं सीख सकते. When I started off in Daraz, I think 6 years well spent, because you get to learn so much in all departments. So it makes you an all-rounder. So I think startups में काम करने की towards, I think स्टूडेंट्स भी ज्यादा सोच रहे हैं और उनको इस चीज के लिए encourage भी बहुत करना चाहिए. I think it's a very good way to kind of start your career.
Okay. Thank you. Rizwan, we have got a question specifically asking you to answer that you've been part of the aviation industry as well. So what do you think aviation industry is looking at post COVID, and how do you think that they would be revamping their supply chain in terms of HR and in terms of the retail aspect as well, which is ticketing and packages?
Muzammil, first of all, I think one of the hardest hit industries across the globe, it has been aviation, and all the non-essentials, tourism and traveling. This has been the biggest industry which has suffered the losses. And I was reading that if by the end of this year 2020, if the situation does not evolve towards the positive side, almost 80% of the major leading carriers would be compelled to file for bankruptcy. And the numbers have already there, it's on the wall. If you see quite a few leading airlines, they have grounded almost 60, 70%, 80% of their fleets. British Airways, for example, has been compelled to lay off their workforce. So I think it's not going to be easy for aviation supply chain. Being part of aviation, I understand that it's an industry which is very capital intensive. It's an industry which has it's very expensive to keep up and running, because it's type of industry which is either highly profitable, or the moment you step into the red zone, you move towards the death very quickly, unfortunately, because the working capital requirement, the industry is situated at the heart of Europe and America. So the logistical challenges, the support, it's very difficult to sustain for the industry right now. Now, how the situation would unfold, it's premature to say right now anything, but I feel that organizations would have to go lean. It will start from being very cost effective. It will start from being frill free, and in order to sustain, it's going to be difficult.
I think we have lost Rizwan. Noman sir, we've got a question for you as well, that and also for Mugheer, that both of you have been associated with the FMCG industry and legacy companies like Nestle and Unilever and EBM. So with the advent of e-commerce and now commerce, how do you think those
Sorry, I lost connection.
gearing up? So Rizwan, we've asked a question from Mr. Noman and Mugheer, then you can continue.
Sure.
Yes, Noman sir.
Yeah, please, can you go ahead, just this interruption so I can heard it properly.
Yes.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
We've got a question that you and Mugheer were associated with legacy companies. And how do you think those legacy companies, which have got usually their rules written in stone, how are they changing to the continuously changing environment, especially related to e-commerce, which is focusing more on the consumer, end-to-end consumer, rather than giving directly to the retail shops and to the general trade and modern trade?
I think um, uh, the I think the companies, the e-commerce, and this is already on the agenda of the companies. I think in their master battles on their key thrust that we have to move to e-commerce. But I think that this last 4 or 5 months of COVID, I think it's pushing this agenda hard, and everybody realizes the need, that nobody thinks of this kind of a gap 4 or 5 months we have here really struggle to reach to the consumer, and then online business is not booming because now everybody is going towards online, be it industry, be it education institute or whatever. So I think that's the only way forward of the e-commerce. So I think the industries have realized that this is one of the, and I think those who have still not touched the e-commerce and not touched the online business kind of thing, they start getting into it and understand the importance of this online. Because one thing happens in like 4 or 5 months, we are stuck into homes and all this, and that glorify the need of this, or the importance of this business, I believe. So I think, luckily, I think when we started the year, this e-commerce is one of the main thrust of us as a company, and we already engaged one of the leading company in terms of e-commerce, and we are working with them already. And but this COVID times pushes us
Fast forward
a little much faster in this, and that's what we will start doing. And we have one of very good experience with this e-commerce and last, because we have 1 or 2 brands which is very good in product in terms of, and which kind of very prime products, and we have seen that these brands which was not usually focusing by others consumer in the online business, this is going very high, and I have to do this much often. Earlier it was doing it once or twice in a month, but I have to make thrice and four times in a month. So I can see the demand, and sometimes the demand will be different for different. E-commerce is also a channel from my point of view. So demand is a little different, and at a very different SKUs on demand in the e-commerce. So that become active because of e-commerce more than the normal business. So I think these become an opportunity as well, because I think if you remember, and they all agree that a lot of years back it was a sales. Now it's a customer development, customer channels development. The time is changed now. So these are not modernizing just the sake of modern, but I think it's more of a channel strategy which you have while sitting in a end of a sales. So if you're right, so I think e-commerce is an emerging channel, but it also pushes us, the organization, that we have to digitalize ourselves, and we should have stronger systems with us. So I think this is the biggest opportunity, and people are realizing. And I think those who are already in digitization phase, those have good ERP systems are working. The connectivity with the customers are much more good. They are taking advantage of this time, and those are not. They are pushing and going forward to kind of this kind of business. So I think this time is opening up a lot of new opportunities. And I think I said it last time, because the systems are available, the most transparency is there, and we're going to start learning these modern or new ways of transparent communication, because I think the world is open now. बहुत कुछ छुपा हुआ नहीं है कि हम कहीं ना यार नहीं है, बहुत confidential है. Time is changed, because future supply chain is all about collaboration with the customers, collaboration with the competitors even. Sometimes both the competitors sitting in the same warehouse, where they are not sharing in earlier years. So time has changed. You just signed a non-disclosure agreement. That's enough. Trust each other, and let's move in the collaborative model. The future model of supply chain is all collaborative, that we all have to understand. So that's what I believe. We have to start
I take
understanding.
note of that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Muzammil, I'd just like to add a few things. First of all, I think we are massively underestimating traditional FMCG companies, the FMCG giants. So I know for a fact that one of the end-to-end flows in Nestle was idea to execution. And Nestle is striving very hard to implement ideas as soon as possible. So the idea to execution cycle, there is a head for that. Secondly, I think you must be aware of Munchies. That was an app launched by Walls Unilever and Venture Dive. Yep. So that was something that if you take Unilever as an organization, Unilever stepped out of its comfort zone and invested in an app for its ice cream ventures. So traditional FMCGs are also adapting to this change, to the changes in the market landscape. But I think they need to step up, and COVID has pushed it. Push the accelerator so that the changes that would be probably planned for 2021 are now already being implemented in 2020.
So, Mugheer, you've been lucky enough to be on both sides of the table. Before you were looking at the supply chain industry, and now you're Daraz. So, from the perspective of Daraz, from what we've heard, is that there are a lot of different operational requirements when it comes to inbounding the products at Daraz. Whereas, for example, if Nestle would be giving the products to Imtiaz or to Carrefour, they might just go in a carton with maybe different expiry conditions and different packaging conditions. So how do you think these companies are bracing themselves for last mile e-commerce?
So I think what they're doing is primarily, so if I talk specifically about Daraz, so Daraz has a Daraz mall and we keep the inventory as well. So we give you the option so that your inventory, we can store it. And so normally, for example, if I talk about Nestle, we sell by the pallet. So like one pallet of milk pack or one pallet of 1.5 liter bottles. And the end consumer, he wants probably one single case or one single packet of milk pack, 1 liter. So that facility is being provided by Daraz in itself. All right. So that makes it easier for the e-commerce giants, for the FMCG giants to adapt to last mile requirements of the customers.
Okay, thank you. Since we've been talking about retail supply chain in Pakistan, Kinza, I have a question from you. That the food industry is also part of the retail industry, although it's under a different vertical. But food is also a major part of general expenses, and people are spending a lot on food in Pakistan as well. So, how do you think this digitization supply chain is connected to the food industry, and how these small food outlets and even larger food chains like Barbecue Tonight and other players have coped up with this? Because I think all these now commerce players have now placed tablets at these food outlets where they can see what order they're getting and how much lead time they have to deliver into. So how do you think these guys are coping up with it? I think we have.
I think we lost her. I think there's a problem.
We lost her. Rizwan, would you want to continue with what you were previously saying?
Yeah, I would like to add on to two things. Firstly, the aviation. Just to briefly explain the structure of aviation, what are the cost pillars of aviation to understand how they've got a hit. One is the fuel side, which accounts for almost 50-55%. Luckily, this was apparently it was in the favor of aviation business for last couple of years till the pandemic struck, because the global fuel prices were on the downside. So this gave a boost to the aviation. But in past 6 months, the fuel side, despite being on the favorable side, the human resource cost in aviation is excessive because of the crew and because of the pilots, and they're paid handsomely. And then you have MRO. So these three factors constitute almost 80-90% of the total cost, and rest is all administrative. Food being one. In some organizations, they prefer to go outsource. Now, in order to recover from this, whenever this pandemic, if not it gets over, or at least it paves way for the business to continue and commence, which it is somewhat in Europe and domestically in Pakistan as well. For sure, digitization would be the name of the game. Any costs, any expenses that were being incurred in the name of face-to-face interaction would be replaced by cost-effective channels, as Noman sir brightly put, be it ticketing, be it the inquiries and all the setups as well. So in this time, we have learned that we have to find a way to reduce the cost. The same is the opportunity. adding on to what Dr. Irfan mentioned very briefly, I just wanted to add to it because I've also been part of the academia, that these times they give academicians an opportunity to bring this quality education to the masses, which whether we like it or not, because of the income segments and income disparity in the country, was not available to our youth across the board. But the digitization, the online education, and the type of investment being made infrastructurally, intellectually, it paves way for us to roll this opportunity across the board. Coming to your question, which you posted to Kinza, I would like to take opportunity to reply it from a health perspective. It's not just the retail that is transforming. If you would see in the medical field, in the healthcare industry, the transformation is equally massive. And now the OPDs, for example, are being replaced with telehealth setups. And for that, even Zoom has a specialized tailored product for health, and there are other platforms that are being done. For example, pharmaceutical industries and pharmacies, which initially used to supply in person, now they are also establishing channels in integration with the healthcare setup to provide medicines at the doorstep. What we are not realizing is that we have more than almost 8 to 10 million diabetic patients, and we have people with the hepatitis, and we have people with the chronic conditions that needs medication to sustain their life. These are life-saving medicines which are needed every day. And this part of the industry and this part of the retail infrastructure is also evolving to fulfill the needs of all those patients across Pakistan and even globally. So yes, when it comes to health consultation, digitalization is playing an important role. Complementary to this, the pharmacies, the supplies of medicines and all the essential requirements, they are also adopting all these channels. And eventually the customer, because of the type of pandemic it is, staying home is staying safe, but still you need these consultation and you need these medicines. So companies like maybe Daraz is playing its role in different categories, but then there are ventures which are fulfilling the gap in the health sector as well, bridging
Rizwan, I would like
pharmaceuticals,
to
pharmacies, and customers.
I would like to come to these ventures you were speaking about, and I think platforms like Dawai.bk and the Vago are already catering to this. So where do you foresee that, and can you see significant growth in these ventures? Because as pandemic gets over, I would think people will want to go directly to the stores and buy the medicines because they feel more comfortable in that. Or do you think that the consumer perception is changing and the digitization is actually taking its place next year?
Muzammil, it is changing. In fact, the health institutions themselves are now vertically integrating into this arena. You see, this is also from a care point of view. Yes, it is also one major stream of revenue for the health institution that they draw through medicines and supplies, which they use to facilitate the patients and customers at their doorstep. But now, since that physical footprint has reduced, they have to come up, and they are coping up with this through establishing their very own channels and collaborating with these logistics partners to fill the gap of last mile deliveries. And they are investing into the softwares and integration of taking the customer orders and then processing and then delivering them. The simplest form of it in the very community sort of a setting is use of WhatsApp in the neighborhood, where you can just send across the list of medicine that you require, and somebody drops them at your home. The more structured and refined form of it is being provided with the ventures which are structured and have assets deployed for this. So at a very micro level and to the macro level, this is being involved, and health institutions have invested themselves and they are now making a mark. The Vago is a very renowned player in the market which was doing it. keeping in view the same, now the hospitals are investing into this, where they are integrating pharmacies, OPDs, consultancies, and logistics. Combine them three to make consultation available for the patients at home, and subsequently, whatever is the outcome in form of a prescription, to make that available at home. And one area that I would definitely like to highlight before handing it over to you is the payment channel, the transaction, the financial aspect of it, because this has been one of the areas which used to be a challenge, and now innovation is required and has been done. I would
Rizwan, thank you for reaching out this point. And I believe there's a misconception when it comes to supply chain, because whenever people discuss about supply chain, they will mainly talk about warehousing and logistics and movement. Whereas payments, the digital payments is part of the end-to-end supply chain. So thank you for reaching out.
Absolutely.
Dr. Mahmood, I believe you have a question to ask.
Thank you. If you kindly allow me, I would like to ask our participants and panelists, especially, which area do you think we as an institution or we as an academics should be focusing more upon to better prepare our students for coming tomorrows and coming days? If I can have an input from each one of you, I'm making a note of it, please. Thank you.
Start off with you, Sageer. Mugheer.
Yeah. So, if I were to put it down into one course, I think it would be effective communication. So I think that is something that lacks. The recent graduates or the students right now, which I see who approach me on LinkedIn as well, I think they need to approach more. They need to get in touch with more people. They need to learn from other people's experiences. And how you do it is not going to be simply like, okay, tell me about your experience. I think they need to, establish a rapport. Networking, if I would put it in a better word. They should learn how to network better, because that is going to, teach them a lot of things. That is one thing. Second thing is off the course learning. So I think generally the students are not aware of what's happening around the world, what's the startup culture, what is how innovation is being led in different countries, in different geographies, even in Pakistan. So I think they need to have an off-the-course learning course so that they are able to, learn this that which is not being taught in the book. All right. So these are the two, I think, comments from my side.
I think I'll have to agree with Mugheer here. I think it's very important that practical knowledge ho, and they're aware of what's going around, and communication skills are key. When you're speaking with so many people, when you're negotiating and all of these, I think negotiation skills per bahut zaruri hai. If you're actually thinking of something, I think that's one area where I think there's a lot of improvement that's needed. And I think uske alawa, I think Mugheer has pretty much covered everything else.
Lutfi Saab, can we have your opinion, please?
You're asking me?
Yes, can we have your opinion on the question which Dr. Mahmood asked?
Can you repeat the question, because the voice is not 100% accurate? So can you repeat this?
So basically, what Dr. Mahmood, can you ask?
Sorry, my bad. My question was that what do you expect, or which areas that you would like to see us as an academic or institution to cover or focus upon for our students for tomorrow, and all the changes that are taking place?
Yeah, I think the 2-3 things I must say. The academia has a big responsibility. When the industry is when you go back and want to hire a resource of supply chain, so it's very important that I don't see up till now any institute in Pakistan, to be very honest and blunt with you, that any institute in Pakistan who is teaching end-to-end supply chain in any of the curriculum. I have seen many guys. I'm also on the board of few curriculum boards as well. So the first thing important that people have to understand what is, because a lot of people understand supply chain as only logistics. They don't understand supply chain end-to-end. So I think end-to-end supply chain understanding has to be there. You'll have to understand one, Second is more important, is that practical knowledge. I think this is which movies and Kinza has touched already, the practical knowledge. Because whenever they are doing a course of supply chain, they must go to industry, visit, understand, meet the professional, as we're meeting right now. Meet the professional, understand what is happening in the world, and even world, let's understand what is happening in Pakistan. I think the Mugheer is doing Daraz and Kinza is doing Cheetay, and a lot of other people are doing. So there are a lot of good things that are happening in pockets. We need to understand and explore that what is happening, how these models are working. So second thing and third thing is very important, that the teachers who are spending time with the students, I think they should have the practical knowledge as well of supply chain. Because I have been to many universities and I have taken lectures, so I have pretty much understanding what that, and I have interviewed a lot of teachers who want to join multiple companies, and I interviewed them as well. So I have a pretty good understanding. So I think the practical knowledge, the teachers should have it, so that they can tell them what is happening, and end-to-end supply chain. And one more part I think which I'm missing is, which I showed, I think the last time we have a session with the webinar, I'm talking about the how part of supply chain. At times we think that the supply chain, the guys who are on the, on the back end, they just, you say something, the marketing sales say something, and they just do implement. I think no, supply chain has completely evolved. Because if you're in a business, 70-80% of the turnover is in the hand of supply chain. So a company, a department, a function who has a 80-70% of turnover in their hands, I think they can change the fate of a company. So I think the supply chain has to understand their true knowledge, their true potential, their true input to the companies. So I think then they understand that the role they can play. So the leadership of supply chain has to understand that we have to develop supply chain leaders, just not through technical and experts. No, the true leaders that can change the way supply chain.
This is something which the academia would definitely try to do. We've got a similar question, that what strategies are going to be adapted on the industry's side to utilize these academic resources for effective integration in the industry?
So I think if I'm truly perspective of EBM, because I'm working in EBM right now. So we have created, I think, long time back, a center of excellence. And the purpose of that vision of center of excellence was to create the excellence in this biscuit industry. Yeah. And what we do, and we have a very established lab, we hire internees from universities. They come, they food technologies, they work, and they develop recipes, they work on the other raw materials, and try to do a practical knowledge which industry can utilize. Now we have increased the scope of the center of excellence, and now we are talking about technology. So we are developing technology manuals and things kind of, so that whole industry, that's not EBM, the whole biscuit industry or the confection industry should get benefit out of that knowledge. So we don't want to contain the knowledge. And I must share that up till now, 5 or 6 research papers we have wrote by the help of Industria and the EBM, and they are very much on the journals, right? And they publish a very good journals. So I think the role, and this is theoretical part and practical, and also the internship, the problem-based assignments. The internship has to be a problem. So academia and industry can go in together. But I say one thing, that academia has to play a bigger role in this, to come and meet and industries, get these assignments, get them work together, because industries has a different mindset they're working. So I think if academia a little more proactive in this approach, they can get a huge benefit out of it. And I think, I'm sure that since as a person, I'm going to the universities and giving lectures, it's all about creating awareness of supply chain. I also part member of Supply Chain in Pakistan. So these are doing in sidelines, spending my Saturdays and Sundays to give back to the society, I think. And we all can do that. And I think you are doing this fabulous job right now, giving students a perspective of the e-commerce and digitization. So we all can contribute and upgrade the knowledge level of our students. So I think it's a joint responsibility, but I must say the academia has to play a more proactive role. That's what I say.
Rizwan, we would want you to reply to Dr. Mahmood's query as well. After that, we are going to open the floor for questions.
I think very pertinent things have already been said and heard, but I would just like to emphasize on this linkage between academia and industry. I would fully agree with Noman Saab that academia has to live up to the expectation, and The reason why I'm saying is that there are two aspects where I've seen these students struggling. One is how to do networking. Like Mugheer rightly mentioned that, yes, we have been, I would be candid that I was exposed to these terminologies and familiarized in letter and spirit when we entered into the corporate world. Uh, and it was a need to be successful and in order to be effective and in order to survive in certain cultures, in certain companies where networking and all these strategies and techniques we had to familiarize with. But for students, I think they're not equipped with the modern techniques. So academia has to provide them these platforms so that they can also integrate themselves and they can get in touch with the industries through the department called placement. Now when it comes to placement, they have this responsibility of bridging the gap between academia and the industries, because for a facilitator, for example, if I just wear the hat of a facilitator, it's difficult for me to support 40 different students, whereas this institution and within the institution of placement, they have to have these ties with the industry for the field visits, for the internships, for the seminars, and for these type of webinars where you can call in industry panelists and make them familiarized with that. Needless to say, the internship programs or the capstone that is being already done with the industry is solving some real problems. So the other part is the psychosocial, support that students need, especially in these pandemics. Let's not forget that it's not hard, it's not easy for any one of us. Those who have the jobs and those who have the businesses and those who have not. In my class, I can tell you there are quite a few students, and we will continue to face this situation where those individuals do not hold those jobs any longer. So we have to extend that support as well, the psychosocial support as well, and we have to give them the confidence and the hope, and we have to spread optimism that the best is yet to come. Things would get back to normal, and for that we have to go out from a humanistic perspective as well and from a professional perspective as well. So yes, industry academia linkage one, but at the same time we have to tell our students, and it is again on the academia, we have to equip them how to do the networking, how to use the tools, how to use this opportunity of online digital landscape that is now available. It substitutes person to person meetings, and it makes it more easier for students to approach people in the industry. That's what I feel. That for example, as a professional, I would be more comfortable in sparing 30 minutes for somebody at the convenience of my home on Zoom or a Google Meet, as compared to facilitating someone coming to my office, maybe a group. So this has become easy now. The transformation, the transferring of knowledge is easy through digital landscape, and this is where the students need to come forward, and they
Okay,
need
Rizwan,
to make the best out of LinkedIn and Zoom and all these platforms.
Rizwan, if this means that you are, we can lock you for your next session as well.
I will be more than happy. I'll be
Okay.
more than happy to do
We've
so.
got a technical question.
I'd just like to add a couple of things. I think there's a lot of pressure being put on academia, and rightly so. But I think the current scenario that the graduates, I mean, corporates have to play their part as well, right? So when you hire candidates for an internship, make them go through a proper internship rather than giving them data entry jobs or giving them, something that does not challenge them, something that does not add value to the time that they're spending over there. Number one. Number two, I'd like to agree with Noman Saab that whenever we are, the person who's teaching supply chain, the academia, they need to have a professional linkages as well. That is important for A, networking, B, for, to be able to communicate current trends and what's happening today, because it's a fast changing world. You learn something today, you have to unlearn it and relearn it probably tomorrow. So the faculty should be supply chain, professionals. Those were 2 cents.
I would just like to add one thing, Muzammil,
Yes, Rizwan.
if you allow. Yeah, with respect to this internship part, very interesting thing, Mugheer. I totally agree, and in this, I believe HR and training and organizational development, because being in operations, we have been in the very forefront. Whether it was COVID, pre-COVID, and even in post-COVID, it would be like that. So the workloads have been crazy, and innovation has been at an unprecedented pace. But these support departments, like HR, for example. I remember working for an oil marketing company where exactly this thing was followed, and for internees, it was not a commodity that you will, get into 200 odd individuals and place them for filing and place them for data entry and posting of vouchers for last 3 months, which were unposted. No, that's criminal, I would say. That's cruel. What they used to do was they used to ask the managers of every respective department, be it retail, be it marketing, be it finance, to devise projects to come up with gap analysis or certain areas where they wanted to make a giant leap, but due to certain limitations. For example, nowadays, the human resource, except for few industries, Daraz and Cheetay might be an exception where they are taking in the resources. 90% of the industry is on the verge of laying off. So you see, the situation is not very good for them. So the students, I see it as an opportunity for HR professionals to bridge this gap where they don't want to add on to the costs of headcounts, and they have reasonably well equipped, I would say, because these graduate students or MBA students, they have the skill. They can adopt to new technologies well. They can understand the culture. These can fill out in these times when you want to save out onto the cost, as well as you want to give hands-on experience to these students. A lot more and more interns and apprentice, they can be inducted in these times where you don't want to put pressure on your finances, on your working capitals and cash at hand. And on the other hand, it will be beneficial for the students as well, provided, as Mugheer said, organizations are also ready with the gap analysis and type of meaningful assignments for them. This will benefit the organization and the students as well. So when this pandemic is over, they're equipped through solving the most difficult and complex times the world has seen almost in last 100 years.
Okay, thank you. Kinza, we've got a question for you, that the food industry is a major part of the retail industry as well. And after the advent of nowcomers, I believe there's been a massive digitization spree in the food industries, because you guys have placed tablets at every shops, and they've got a different style of working now. So can you shed some light on that and how the food industry is coping up with the digitization?
Sure. So I think the food industry was a lot focused on the dine-in experience. I think since that is out of the picture now, restaurants and food outlets are focusing more on digitalization and kind of digitizing the whole experience. More and more are coming up with their own apps and also developing their own websites. So that's a positive sign. And they're also open to work with, let's say, the likes of Kareem now or Cheetay, and they're opening up to these services. So I think that's a very, very positive change, and it's very important. I think it's a need of the hour again. There's no way the dine-in is going to open up anytime soon. So I think the tablet placement, I think जो vendors को technology provide की है, उससे वो खुद भी बहुत we've enabled a lot of restaurants like this to kind of work through the tablets, and it's working really well, and they are taking it seriously now. They weren't exactly taking it very seriously back then, and I know Food Panda is the market leader, so a lot of them were comfortable with only working with one aggregator, but now they're opening up to all the other aggregators as well, because they need to expand their customer base.
Okay, thank you. We've got a technical question from Ikra, and she's asked that in the new normal, how can supply chain effectiveness be improved by engaging workforce? And what skill set is required for the supply chain managers who are in existing positions to cope up with the new challenges or behaviors? Rizwan or the ones maybe either one of you can answer to this question. Was I audible?
Noman, you want to go ahead with this?
No, Rizwan, you can say that I can just repeat the question and then.
So basically, Ikra asked that what are the behaviors and the skill set required by existing managers? We've been discussing about the skill set which students would need to enter the industry, but what is the skill set which existing managers need to have in order to cope up with the existing situation in the industry?
I think
yeah, please,
please,
Noman,
Rizwan, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rizwan. Please.
Existing managers, I think first of all they have to the temperament, patience, calmness, all these adjectives you have to put in together, because it's a test of times, especially for those sectors where the boundaries have blurred between 9 to 5. It's no longer a 9 to 5, 9 to 6 operations, and it's no longer, the industries are not operating like that. So going online, these are the skills, the new norms, the etiquettes of digital landscape like Zoom, the communication on email, the communication on WhatsApp. New portals are being launched. So this is something that organizations and the managers, they would have to adopt to, they would have to learn to that. For example, digital signatures, I'm sure a lot of companies would be struggling for, I don't know how many years back to implement and roll them out, but due to one reason or the other, it was pending. In past few months, I've seen organizations which were lagging, coping up with this because this is the new norm. And more than that, I think it was said by one of the participants, communication. This is the skill which is needed the most right now. Intelligent communication is what we are talking about, because there are a lot of communication channels now, but then what needs to be communicated in a given time, and you have to be emotionally intelligent as well, because while you are in a conference room, you could fairly understand what is the temperature of that and where the direction of the argument is going. But in the online arena, it's very different, and you have to give space to everyone within the organizations. So there are different type of people who have different type of temperaments. So communication is the key.
I think Rizwan touched it very well. Other than what Rizwan said, I think just to touch one or two more points here. I strongly believe that the supply chain professionals need to understand the business dynamics very clearly. And they have to have understanding of that, should have a finance acumen too, because they have to understand that they are the one who can improve company's margin or decrease company's margin as well. So, they need to understand what are the actions they are taking to improve the business. So they should have a relevance of their actions with the business perspective. If it's a trading working capital, it's all about inventory and the working capital. It's supply chain who's leading with all these inventory mechanisms. So they should know what is the impact positively and negatively on the cash of the company. How can they create more cash to invest behind the brands? Similarly, they should know how they improve the margins of the company. So a good finance acumen is required by supply chain guys so that they can understand their role and their importance and their inputs to the business. So that is one more important thing. And I think it's touched very well that the communication part is absolutely important. Whatever, how good and technically you are sound, if you're sitting in a meeting and you're not able to convey your point of view, you are lost. You are nowhere then. So this is a practical aspect which is advantage, and I fully agree with them. And secondly, learn what is happening, what is modernizing, what is innovation happening in that area, so that you can come out of the box and think what is happening outside your neighboring countries, your neighboring companies. So you need to equip yourself with the modern approaches in the innovations. If you are not going to touch these, you become a stale person and you are just sitting at the corner of the company and not able to add a lot of values. So you should understand what you can add value to the company. Understand business, understand innovations, the modernization, what is happening, and of course, digitalization is a part of innovation, my point of view. So this is must for a supply chain professional.
Thank you, Noman Saab and Rizwan, for your valuable feedback. Mugheer, we've got a question for you. Arsalan Khan has asked, how do e-commerce platforms cope up with lead times which are disturbed due to COVID and due to lockdown, because some products are being shipped from a different country?
Okay, so Muzammil, I'd just like to add to what Noman Saab was saying, financial acumen, yes, but I think going forward, the supply chain manager has to be very empowered. He has to, the CEO or whoever is heading the business, state hai ya public listed company hai, but the supply chain manager should have the ability to take decisions on spot because going forward, he will have to take many decisions on the spot and he cannot go back and forth time and again and prepare feasibilities and case studies, etc. So he needs to be very empowered going forward. And coming to the question in terms of lead time, so there were some things that were in our control, something that was not in our control. So, for example, when the entire China was shut down and we had cross-border orders, so none of those were operating. But what we did do was we onboarded suppliers from Turkey, and we had Turkey collection gone live. So because Turkey was initially not as impacted as China, and secondly, we tried to reduce the lead time within the country so that the impact of the lead time, which was delayed because of China or because of circumstances beyond our control, the impact is reduced.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mahmood, would you like to add your comments to the session because we've got only 3 to 4 minutes left now, so can you?
I came to this session just, not as a panelist, and I didn't know there was much to share. Actually, I came to learn from our colleagues and our professionals in the field, and it has been a very pleasant experience. And I myself, I admit that I learned a lot. Consequently, my knowledge about Pakistani e-retailing industry is very limited, but it's so pleasant to hear what is going on and how a huge transformation is taking place, and I can see the people who are transforming in front of me. It's a privilege to be part of this panel. I really thank you everyone from sincerely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noman Saab. Any comments you would like to add on the session or any piece of advice you would want to leave us with?
I think it's very important that we should have diverse opinions coming for some subject. So when a challenge comes, when diverse opinions come, you open up your mind and start accepting things. So it's good to connect with each other. So I think thanks for you hosting it very well, and I think thanks to all as well. I think thank you, especially Dr. Mahmood and Faraz, who's basically connected me in this forum. So I think academia is going to take these initiatives. I think this is part and parcel of for the students, is part and parcel of their understanding of what is happening around the world. So I must say, keep engaging, keep connecting, keep challenging each other. This is also very important because sometimes we become offensive and defensive when somebody challenges. So I'm very happy that Dr. Musa very openly heard the comments for what I'm expecting from academia. And that's very important because I was also part of academia, and I started after my MSc, I started teaching at Karachi University, Applied Chemistry and Food Science Technology. So I seen that part as well. So I can see both the parts. So that's why I'm very keen. And when I was in Unilever, I'm telling you one thing which I spent time, at least 1 week, taking my boss from Pakistan, Karachi to Islamabad. I touched all industry, all academia, so that I can start a collaboration with academia and industry. But unfortunately, it was died on because academia is not that proactive. That's why I said that we have to proactive and connect with the industry and the organizations. So that's what I think. Looking forward to more connect, and I think wonderful comments. And I also learned a lot about the e-commerce from you guys, honestly speaking. So that the learning is two-way, I must say. It's not one-way communication.
Thank you, Noman Saab. Any comments from you, Kinza?
Well, thank you for organizing this. I think it's been a great session. And like Noman Saab said, it's always great to hear from everybody and with all different views. And I think we should keep connecting. Thank you for organizing this. Would love to connect with you all again.
Okay, one question specifically from you, because I believe you are an alumni of CBM only. So how do you think that IoBM prepared you to take up this role? You've been part of Daraz since last 5-6 years and now a GM and Cheetay. So how was your university experience overall?
My university experience was great. I think I'd love to give back to IoBM. It's given me a lot, and I think it really shaped me as a person. Like I said, that communication skills, being out there, initially when you start off, that's all you need for just to represent yourself correctly. I think that kind of confidence and to be out there, and learned from so many amazing, like the faculty, they've taught us so much, and I think way to go to everyone. And Dr. Mahmood ने भी इतनी चीजें add in की, और जो हम सारा feedback दे रहे हैं academics, I think most of it is being incorporated, and बहुत practical knowledge भी दी जाती है. So I think I learned a lot, and it was a great experience, and I can't wait to give back to IoBM in every which way possible.
Thank you, Kinza. Thank you for your kind words. Rizwan Malik, your feedback and
it has been extremely pleasant to learn from all the panelists. I think from a retail side as well. This is something for me also. It was learning. Moreover, the best part of this entire times is that we are learning how to learn. The most important thing is because we might end up with some another situation like that, but to have to be adaptive, to adopt to whatever the solutions there are, how to be innovative. This is what we are enjoying right now. So I believe these type of sessions would be conducted in future as well. They're very fruitful for us as a professionals as well as for the students. Keep it up. I think IBM has done a very commendable job in this.
Thank you. Mugheer, your closing comments on how IBM and Daraz can maybe partner in the future, and any capstone projects for our students, maybe especially related to supply chain and operations.
Sure, I'll get back as soon as we have something. And I think with this session, I hope it has been fruitful for the participants, for those who have been listening. And it has been a pleasure being on this platform with such experienced leaders. One thing, if I was to send a message to all the participants, I'd say that please continue learning. Don't just restrict yourself to the books. Interact with people, network with people. You don't know how many people are willing to help. For example, you have the greatest tools of communication right now, LinkedIn, etc. Get in touch with people, learn what is going on in the world, so that once you step out of the academia, you are prepared to take on bigger challenges. And thank you, Muzammil and Dr. Mahmood and the entire IBM faculty for having us over here.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you for sparing our 2 hours on a Saturday evening. Dr. Mahmood and Kamran Bilgarami, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm closing the session now. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you all.
Thank you.